Hey, everybody, welcome back to another week of the Manson Brothers Show. I'm your host, Stone Manson, here with my lovable brother, Skull Manson, a.k.a. Carlos. He's rolling the six features because he's got that crazy leather cowboy hat on again.
This is the greatest hat ever.
Are you like one of the village people, or what's going on?
No, my girlfriend loves this hat.
Whatever. Hey, this week we're talking about another John Carpenter, man.
The original.
Like, how many times
the
can you
one
do
that
it?
put him
This
on
is the one that showed you can make a lot of money in the movies.
On a low budget.
Halloween. We'll be right back. Hey, so this week we are talking about the original,
the legendary,
the movie that kind of kicked off movies about holidays, right?
I think so.
It's Halloween. It's the classic, the slasher.
Yeah,
Michael Myers.
There's a debate over whether Black Christmas was the first holiday film, but I think Halloween. That was 1974.
I got news for you. I don't care if Black Christmas was the first one.
No,
nobody
paid
Halloween. Attention. It's Halloween. Yeah. It's Carpenter. It's one of the things right out of the gates. This is one of the few movies where the guy, the killer, starts off as the killer, right? It's not somebody's mom.
No, you know who it is from the beginning.
Like,
we know
this
who
is
it
the dude.
Right,
he
they
starts
reveal
killing when he's like knee high to a grasshopper, and he just keeps killing.
What I like about this film, other than everything, it's definitely on my top 5 scary lists.
Yeah,
for sure. It still scares me. I think it's the way Carpenter shot it was great. But what I like about it is it's not your typical slasher film that up to that point they had seen. So like everybody knows the Italian giallo films. There was a lot of masked slashers. I mean, that's what they're known for. But they were more crime dramas than they were horror films. But that's where the whole masked slasher thing came from, was there. But Carpenter added this supernatural element to it. So it's hard to get. If you can find it, I would strongly recommend you read the
here comes the savant shit.
The novella, the the book adaptation of the film.
Out with it, man.
Because they explain that there's actually was an evil spirit that got into Michael Myers, and that's what.
Well, but that's
why they called him the Shape, because he wasn't a person.
In this first version, there is no supernatural elements to it.
They don't mention it, but there is. That's why he survives at the end.
Yeah,
because he's that's how he can do all that crazy shit. So in the book, there's scenes of him in the mental asylum where the lights go out mysteriously. He can do all this weird shit. But it was also super cool because Carpenter really used what I like to call the art of being small. Like what would you say, minimalism. You did not see Michael Myers a lot. You saw him in shadow.
Or something like that.
Very much like that. Yeah. You would see him at a distance. So the first couple times he's out of focus.
Yeah, he's off to the side.
Yeah, the first couple times you see him, you're not sure, is he wearing a mask or is he a guy with a weird face? What's the deal? And it's just a
I actually think
film.
It's those things that you're talking about that make this such an amazing movie.
100%.
Because we all know about it as like the slasher flick and the flick that kind of started all of this. But it's the behind the scenes stuff. It's the things about how little money they had to make it, what they did to do it. They had to get
there was
like
very little blood in it whatsoever. Unlike the movies that came later, which relied on gallons of stage blood and all this. Right. I would challenge anybody to watch that movie and point out to me where all the blood is, because there isn't.
It's actually, to me, one of the things that makes me not like the newer Halloween.
Yeah,
is
everything.
They go for these really violent, horrible kills, whereas in the original, he's just hitting you in the chest with a knife, right? Or he's choking you, or whatever.
And it's way scarier. It's way more effective. And the reason that it is Carpenter knew exactly how far to go to let your imagination fill in the rest. Yeah. Right. So it's not what you see, it's what you don't.
And there's a lot of that. The imagination is a big part of the movie.
Hugely. I mean, it's really a genius.
I think it's, they've talked about a million times how they screened the movie. Everybody watched it before they put the score in, and everyone was like, "Oh my god!"
And also, he hadn't cut it. He hadn't cut it yet either. So there were more. He actually had more of the Michael Myers character.
But the minute he gave you the music behind,
it totally changed the dynamic of it.
All of a sudden, it was like, "Oh my god, this is the greatest thing ever."
One of the creepiest scenes in the thing is at the very end, where the camera is going from the house to where they were, to where the spot he was laying in, to the alley, to the, like he could be anywhere. Yeah. It's showing you all these places where he could be, progressively out from where he was.
Clearly, Carpenter was a master of scoring. I mean, his
scoring and directing. I mean, so he's a master storyteller.
Right. If you look at Assault on Precinct 15, or you look at The Thing, you look at Halloween, you look at Escape from New York, they all have that dreadful tone. But he knows when to pick it up. I mean, he's a genius when it comes to.
What's your favorite part in Halloween?
Well,
because mine's really specific.
I mean, it's stupid, but it's the end when he's shot and falls out the window, and then he's not there, because that's like, oh shit.
Yeah, and that's probably one of the first times, if not the first time, they ever did that. Whereas the indestructible.
I think the scene. I will say this: the scene where it's raining like crazy. They've wheeled out of the mental hospital. I don't know what you call it today. I'm sorry.
Yeah, be a mental.
It was an insane asylum, or a loony bin, or a nut house. Yeah. But I know we can't say that.
Now they call it the home for the video.
Right. And there's the part where you kind of see the wandering people. They almost look like zombies.
Well, that's my scariest part, where they're just wandering out there in the rain in their, like, what do they call those?
Scrubs.
Gowns. Like
medical
gowns. Yeah. And it's raining out, and it's just a super creepy scene. The other one
looks like Night of the Living Dead.
Yeah, it's really scary.
Because all you get are the car headlights.
The other one to me is where Jamie Lee Curtis is standing in a hallway, and you see Michael Myers' face just slowly illuminate.
Oh, yeah.
And that's really effective. And
well, I think the part where he scrambles over the car and they show it back, that's the Undertaker move.
Dean Cundy, who was the director of photography, was just a master of doing cool stuff.
So let's talk about that, because the Undertaker bit the whole, when Michael Myers is down, he's gotten stabbed by the with the yarning needle.
Yep.
Right, and she's. Take a breather, and all of a sudden he does
he sits up. That was just, masterful.
Wow.
And copied by one of our favorite wrestlers, Mark Calloway, The Undertaker.
I mean, that was his comeback.
And a lot of people probably didn't realize that's where he bit that from. But Mark,
great bite.
Mark, let's be honest. Yeah. You bit it from Halloween, which is okay, because everybody wrestling bites from everything.
You know what's interesting? Let's talk about that a second.
All right.
I apologize for cutting into the Halloween for the Undertaker, but I never understood the appeal of the Undertaker. I didn't get it. Granted, Mark was a phenomenal worker.
Oh man,
for a guy his size, he could get her. And he put on
the best of the best
5-star matches every WrestleMania,
and one of the best guys too in the. Outside the ring.
I don't know if you ever saw his match with Shawn Michaels at WrestleMania, but that thing was an instant classic.
I don't know if he's had a bad match. All his matches are great.
I just never got how over he was with that character. I don't know. I kind of liked it better when he came back with the American Badass.
That was cool. I like that gimmick too, and I don't know how he felt about it. Right. Frankly, they stole our gimmick, but whatever. It's okay, Vince.
I ain't one to gossip, so you didn't hear nothing from me.
Problem. But anyway, so I don't know what the appeal was, but it worked great. But he stole it from Halloween, and that is one of the most iconic scenes in horror movie history, where he sits up in there. By the way,
and that was because the minute he does that, you get the
at perfect timing too, man. Tell me that didn't scare you, people. Tell me it didn't scare you.
Yeah.
So did you know, dear brother, that Michael Myers as an adult was played by 2 different guys?
Really?
Yeah. So he was played by our friend
Nick Castle.
Nick Castle. Right? Yep. Our friend Nick Castle played Michael Myers through the majority of the film. The scene where Jamie Lee Curtis is struggling with him and pulls his mask up, and they for a brief second show his face. That's not Nick Castle. That's an actor named Tony Moran. And the reason they got him was because they wanted him to have an angelic face. They wanted him to look not menacing.
Is that when he's doing the?
Yeah, right. When they're struggling, he's like, "Arr." So they wanted him to have an angelic face. He pulls the mask back down, and then that's history. But that was a genius.
But obviously Nick Castle played the Shape, right, 90% of the time.
Yeah, and because he had a cool walk, and he was available.
How cool is it, by the way? You brought this up earlier that he's called the Shape in the script. He's just
the Shape.
He's not Michael Myers.
Nope. He's the Shape. Yeah, it's really neat. And everybody knows about the famous story about the mask, what it was. You know, it was a mask of William Shatner from Star Trek. They bleached it and cut the sideburns up and screwed the hair up, painted it. I mean, again, genius move. And when they were talking about it, he said, okay, they had him come in with a clown mask on. They're like,
oh, right. Shatner didn't sue him.
That's pretty creepy. Well, they changed it enough. And in fact, Shatner mentions that recently in an interview I saw, he mentioned about how cool he thought it was cool. So yeah, he liked it. He thought it was neat. But so they come in with a clown mask, with one other mask, and they're like, all right, let's try this. Then they come in with the Shatner mask all fixed, and the room stopped. And they were like, that's the one. Because it's an emotionless, like, it's hard to describe what
they made it perfectly.
Yeah, they shaved the eyebrows off.
Great things is that it's like it's so deadpan.
Yeah. And real and lifelike.
Dr. Loomis talks about the dead eyes.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Make it like the eyes are super dead.
Let's talk about Dr. Loomis for a second. Dr. Loomis,
one of our favorites.
Yeah, played by the awesome Donald Pleasance. And, you know, so here's another funny bit of movie history. They originally went to Christopher Lee, the very famous British actor who played Dracula. For all you people who, I know you horror fans already know this, but for those of you who don't are tuning in, Christopher Lee played Dracula in the Hammer horror series and many other things. The Man with the Golden Gun. And tons of stuff. Great actor. He was Saruman in the Lord of the Rings trilogy.
But he's not actually in this movie, right?
No, he's not because he passed.
He passed away, or he passed on the film?
He passed on the script because he thought it would just be a low budget piece of junk, and it wasn't, you know, he was so great. I'm so great. I cannot do this film. So Pleasance gets it, and the rest is history. And then later on, I heard he had, I don't know if this is true, but I heard Carpenter had a run-in with him, and Christopher Lee was like, I should have passed on it. Oddly enough, though, had Lee played that character, it may have not worked.
Yeah. Well, Donald Pleasance was famously the highest paid person in the entire production.
Yeah.
Right?
And he batted it out of the park. And I heard he was in the bag the majority of the time, which I'm sure you can relate to.
He probably was. He just looks old during the movie.
Right.
Well,
he was a heavy drinker. Yeah, he was a heavy drinker. And he was, but the funny thing was,
we can't hold that against anybody, can we?
He would, in between scenes, he'd be so wrecked. But as soon as the camera started rolling.
Wait, is that a problem?
It's a problem if you can't hold your mud, but apparently he can. And he killed and the only reason he did the movie was because his daughter liked the soundtrack from Assault on Precinct 13.
How could you?
And he told Carpenter that, and through the whole production, Donald Pleasance thought it was a piece of shit, and he would tell Carpenter it all the time. But afterwards, you know, he treated it with reverence. But while they were filming, he was just like, I can't believe I'm reduced to doing this.
I once played the President of the United States.
Yeah. Oh, he did that. That was later.
At that point.
Halloween resurrected his career.
I didn't know he had a career before Halloween.
Oh, yeah. Some lots of stuff. The Great Escape.
So let's talk about JLC.
He played Blofeld in You Only Live Twice, I believe.
Oh, yeah. That's right. That's right. Well, so Jamie Lee Curtis famously made like $1,500 for this movie and had to buy her own shit from JCPenney.
Yeah, did she take a piece of the action, though?
I don't think so.
Oh, too bad if she did.
Ooh. And she was a, attractive young lady. She was the perfect person for this role.
And the daughter of stars.
Yes.
Daughter of Tony Curtis and Janet Leigh.
Some name cachet.
Yep.
Again, we're talking Carpenter movies.
Yep.
Every single Carpenter person ever is in this movie.
Yep.
Right.
Charles Cyphers.
There's only one who isn't.
Yes.
And who is it?
Tom Atkins.
Tom Atkins, not in the movie. Charles Cyphers in the movie. Nancy Loomis is in the movie.
PJ Souls. The lovely PJ Souls. PJ, we love you. We had a great time with you this summer at Flashback Weekend. You're awesome.
Of kissing PJ Souls on the cheek, and I will cherish it forever.
He was trying to get that thing all weekend, so thanks for putting up with him.
And thanks to my buddy Rob out there from Flashback, who I believe engineered that entire deal.
Yeah, he did. I'm sure he did.
I think he may have told her that I had other designs, because when I walked up to her, she said to me, "I'm old enough to be your mother," and I said, "Not tonight. You're not, baby." But
she's not old enough to be our mother.
My intentions were, nothing.
Our mother's like 142 years old.
Mom, stop.
Our mother looks like a more attractive at Rita Moreno.
Listen, I don't want to think about Mom when I'm talking about PJ Souls. So,
I met PJ Souls in the green room, and she was awesome.
And by the way, she has the hottest headshot of her still, and she writes totally.
By the way, her line totally blacked out our food.
Totally.
So anyway, but we regress. So PJ Souls is in it totally, and Nancy Loomis, right? Who was married to Nancy Loomis?
Yeah, that's her name.
Or is it Nancy Wallace? Nancy
Loomis. That's how they came up with Dr. Loomis.
Oh, that's right. Right, but she was
pretty hot too for an older chick.
Wasn't she married to one of the other people in the crew?
She may have been.
I don't know.
She was Jamie Lee Curtis's other friend, right?
Yeah.
The two friends.
Right, the three. It was the three of them.
Jamie Lee Curtis, Nancy Loomis.
You know who turned out to be a hot chick was the little girl that played Lindsay. She grew up and she turned out to be a looker. Yeah.
Might be considered kind of creepy.
Yeah. Well, not then. Yeah, we were little too when that movie came out. It came out in '78.
Charles Cyphers is in it.
Yep.
So I have, because I'm in California quite a bit, have been by all of the areas that supposedly pass for Illinois.
Yeah, it's Pasadena. It's funny you look. There's no
hardware shop all the time. No.
Is that really there? Is it still there?
Absolutely.
Get out.
It's not a hardware shop anymore. It's like a fucking muffin place.
I haven't been to Pasadena in years.
Cupcake,
great little town. I love how they had like a bag of leaves.
South Pasadena, which is even better.
They had a bag of leaves because they shot it, I think, in the summertime. Yeah. It was supposed to be the fall, and they had to put all these leaves out, and then they had to pick them all up and move them.
Yep. Well, and they have a little.
There are no pumpkins.
That's like the Halloween museum.
Yeah. Oh, is it? Oh, that's cool.
It's really great.
Yeah, and I know they had to find there was no pumpkins available, so they had to get these weird gourd things and paint them orange to be pumpkins.
Well, technically, pumpkins are gourds.
Are they? Yeah. Oh, well, that's interesting. You learn something new every day. Not me, but
you remember from high school who the Pumpkin Bowl MVP was? And everybody thought you were the good one. Take that, Lou Holtz.
I was just
suck on that, Coach Holtz.
I was just a stupid nose tag. But anyway,
I thought you were a linebacker.
I was a nose tag. Yeah. I like. See, you were drunk even then. I like wrestling better.
Why did Holtz want you to play linebacker?
Because I was too small. Yeah, I was undersized.
It was up, except in one spot. Anyway, Coach, whatever.
Back to Halloween.
Yeah.
So, what's your favorite part in Halloween? I know you already said it, but
that's the scariest part.
Not the scariest part. But what's your favorite part?
Oh, where PJ Souls shows her boobs.
That's why I asked.
Yeah.
Actually, my favorite part, other than
yeah. She's like,
I told you my scariest part, but my favorite part is actually where he nails the guy up on the door and cocks his head.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was just cool part.
I just thought that was super cool that they made him like canine-like. That when you freak out a dog and then I don't know what's up there, I was like,
quizzical.
But they had him do that as though he had just nothing more than an animalistic kind of. It was almost like everything was instinctual.
Pure instinct. Yeah, it was cool. Yeah, there's that other cool scene where they find a dead dog, and Charles Cyphers is like, "Is that a dog?" It's like, man wouldn't do that. And Donald Pleasence's like, "This isn't the man."
I got to tell you, the funniest part of the movie is when he is masquerading his dog, and he's got the sheet on with the.
Oh yeah.
That's so classic.
So scary, too. Really scary. I like it when Donald Pleasence is screwing with little kids when they're going to the house. He's like, Lonnie, get your ass out of there. And he's like, he's all happy with stuff, and then he gets scared.
That is a great one, too.
Yeah, it's brilliant. It's a really brilliant film. I want you people to write in, and I want you to tell us what your favorite part of Halloween is, because I'd like to know.
There's so many cool scares, like just the part where he's behind the shrubs and then he's not there, or he's by the laundry and then he's not there. I mean,
Carpenter great at telegraphing his next movie, because in Halloween he's showing the original The Thing. That's what they're watching.
Yes.
They're watching that, and they're also watching the original Forbidden Planet. But he really makes a point to show everybody that they're watching the 1954, 55.
And they even talk about it, right? Right back with the 1955 version of
The Thing, right? And he winds up making that, and the rest is history on that one. But really cool. I mean, and if you set the Wayback Machine to those times, when we were young, it was the best. You would have stuff like that where the local channel would show 4 hours worth of old monster movies and stuff like that. That was cool. We had stuff
that back in the day.
Yeah, that's what I mean. Great. Yeah, it was great. It was great. And, you know, I think it's lost today because we have such instant gratification.
It was when you were busy making sure that you didn't have any needles in your
razor blades in your apple.
Snack-sized Snickers bar.
It was a big scare in Chicago, but oddly, a couple of years later, when we were kids, they had the Tylenol thing.
Yeah,
where they actually put the cyanide in the Tylenol. A bunch of people died. If you folks remember that, you can Google it. It was really scary, and they never did find out who did it. Don't Google Chicago when it comes to serial killers and problems. We've had our fair share. Yeah. Between Speck and Gacy and crying out loud. Yeah. I would shudder to think. Yeah. But who knows? I don't know. And
we haven't fires though, thank God. Although Haddonfield did.
You know who's a murderer? You know who are murderers? The McCaskies. Own the Bears. You know why? Because they've killed every good team they've ever had.
85 Bears, though. Greatest Super Bowl champs of all time.
Agreed.
Don't forget about the Super Bowl shuffle.
Mike Singletary.
We had our own version. We're just here to do the who were we working for when we did that?
Oh, Windy City, probably.
I don't remember half.
Smokable.
I don't remember half of the 80s anyway.
Yeah. Anyway, back to
for that matter.
Back to Halloween. So Halloween set off Friday the 13th, and happy birthday to me and my bloody Valentine and every other holiday-related slasher.
Which, if nothing, even if this movie was a total turd, it would have given us all those other great, you know.
The fact that it's the best of the lot.
Yeah, it's like so great. But I will say, the continuing tradition of them, people did very well with a lot of those movies.
Yeah.
We'll cover many of them.
Yeah, Friday the 13th, so forth. Yeah. I like the thing I most like about Halloween is the way it's shot. It's shot in that cool, I wouldn't call that one docu-style, but it's very grainy. I think he shot it on 16 millimeter film and then they blew it up to 35, which is the same technique, I might add, that Rob Zombie used for Devil's Rejects, which gives it that cool look that it has. Yep. Shot it on 16, blew it up to 35. Really neat look. And
technical right now.
Yeah, well, I mean, there's reasons that movies are cool, and a lot of the reasons are not like given to you when you're watching it. You find out later. There's a lot of little pieces to a film that get put together to make it cool. And if one of those things, so let's say we talked about it earlier, if you take away Donald Pleasance as Dr. Loomis and you put Christopher Lee in, you have a completely different film.
Yeah. More than likely. I mean, if you take away Jamie Lee Curtis,
completely different film.
Who knows in there? But.
Yeah, you show 5 minutes more of Michael Myers, you have a completely different film.
Hey, it's time for reviewer email. So here we go. We're gonna dig into the bag of tricks. This one comes from PJ from Haddonfield, Illinois.
Oh,
I'm just kidding. That was a joke. Sorry, PJ.
If there was a Haddonfield,
there is, however. Wait a
minute. Let me tell you this. So, Smiths Grove, Illinois, where the asylum is supposed to be, there's actually a Smiths Grove, Kentucky, which I didn't know until I drove through it a couple of weeks ago. And John Carpenter grew up in Kentucky. So,
have you ever been to Funks Grove, Illinois?
No. Is that a real place?
It is.
Oh, I've never heard about it.
Let's get to our email for the day. This one comes from Sharon. From Bloomington, Indiana. Home of the Hoosiers. That's
Hoosiers! Gene Hackman.
Indiana. Yeah. And the Little 500, I believe they have also that bike race.
Oh, yeah. Very true. Yep.
Anyway, Sharon writes, was it Sharon? Yeah. Sharon. Sharon writes, guys, how do you feel about people like Michael Myers and Jason as they progressively physically grow throughout the series as they go on?
Hate it.
Yeah, I kind of hate that too.
Like, and no offense against Tyler Mane, because he's a great guy, but to put him in there, like to make him Michael Myers, and like who wouldn't be scared of that guy? He's like 7 feet tall.
Yeah, I always say this about, and I'm sure we'll cover them at some point in time, but it's like the Predator movies, right? Like Does the Predator also need to be fucking invisible?
Yeah.
Like for all the shit that he's got going on.
Yeah.
Then it's like, oh, by the way, you can't see me either now. Like,
yeah, why do you have to make these guys these big, like, physical monsters? Like, that's why I think the original Halloween was so great, and why they show him as this angelic thing. He's just, if you saw him walking around without the mask on, you wouldn't think twice about it.
I don't.
If you saw some huge guy walking around, you'd be like, oh, hey.
And wearing a mask. You know?
Yeah, to boot.
It's like, I get that you have to kind of continue to make them have the ability to come back to life or do whatever.
But you can do that without making them physical. Yeah. Like,
I mean, Michael Myers wasn't working out between this one and number 4.
Like, how did he get that big in the insane asylum? What was he doing?
Yeah.
You know, they said he just sat there. I mean, you sat there and looked at the wall. They didn't have, it wasn't in prison where there was a yard where he went out there and he was pumping iron until he was 21 or whatever it was. No, I mean,
he's not a shot caller, you know? He's
he's not
and even in the one, they just show him standing there doing nothing all day. If anything, he'd be atrophying and getting smaller.
Really. I mean, Jason, I think, is a little different because it's a less realistic character, like arguably like Michael Myers.
Yeah.
It presented to you as a more believable character. Jason is more of a cartoonish character.
Actually brings me to an interesting point. You were talking about this earlier with the kind of crime movies, right? Like, at what point does a mystery crime slasher
turn into a horror film?
A horror movie?
Yeah, that's you know what? That is an interesting point. Maybe
is it because he has a mask on and he's got a backstory?
I think I don't know, man, because I would say that it's the amount of gore and stuff in it, but Halloween doesn't have a lot of gore in it, nor does the Texas Chainsaw Massacre for that matter.
They show the killings, and I think that's one of the things where it's separates.
Right.
It's like the minute you show what's going on, it's become a horror movie.
Right. I think if you zone in on exploiting the murder, then it's a horror film. Right.
Yeah. Okay.
Right. If it centers around that.
Well, I think you need to have some.
If it centers around a cop, who I think if it's a cop and he's
what about Maniac Cop?
Well, that's different. But I'm saying if it's centering around if the story is about an investigation, then it's not a horror film.
Then it's a crime
thriller. It's a crime thriller. I think if it's about the murderer,
we're gonna put that to the test.
I don't know. What do you folks think? When does the line get crossed?
I would ask the people out there what their thoughts are. Well, yeah, you know what? That's a great email topic. Yeah. Guys, send us in. Let us know what your thoughts are on where a movie becomes a horror movie,
or is it a crime thriller?
A crime with a serial killer? Because I mean,
because they made 1 billion of them in Italy.
So if there was a story about Jeffrey Dahmer or John Wayne Gacy, is that a horror movie or is that a crime movie? That's real,
right? So then I'll give you a good. So they made a movie with Brian Dennehy in the early '90s about Gacy. It wasn't very good, but it was not a horror movie. Right? It was a crime movie. But obviously, John Wayne Gacy, that's horror movie shit to the nth degree, right?
Yeah, especially if you know the backstory.
I mean, I know he made a bunch of films about John Wayne Gacy, a bunch of them.
Yeah.
But where does the line, where does it come apart? Where's this horror and this crime, and where do they cross?
That's what I'm trying to figure out.
Yeah, folks. We'd like to know, seriously. Because we're dummies.
What do we need to add to Halloween? I mean,
there's not much you can add to it. It's a classic. It continues to be a classic. Here's what I'd like to know. How many of you people out there don't like Halloween? How many of you?
Anybody?
I don't know. How many of you watched it and were like, it's okay?
I think the final thing we should talk about is that I also think Halloween really gave the rise to the technically independent movie, right? The low budget movie that was shot. I mean, it was shot for $300,000, which even adjusted for today would be like $1.5 million.
Yeah,
you know,
so it's still low, but still low.
It's still a low budget movie.
Yeah,
it has made almost $1 billion worldwide. I mean, that's how. Now, was that a function of studios? Obviously, didn't spend as much money on movies back then, right? But John Carpenter also had a vision to go make a movie outside of the studio system with private investors. And he made a fortune off of it, built a career off of it. It's the movie that really kickstarted all of that.
I agree.
You know?
Yeah, and also too, I think they promoted it the way, I don't remember exactly the story about that, but I know when it came out, like it didn't do good right away. It took a while for it to gain steam, but I think that was the first movie where they would locally bombard the TV ads and stuff and radio locally. Then they would go to the next town.
They did a lot of that for Nightmare on Elm Street too.
But Halloween was the first one. So I think that they changed the marketing of it and how they present it. A lot of movies have done that where they've broken ground and stuff.
And let's face it, the holiday of Halloween has never been looked at the same.
No.
And seriously, it's totally different.
Yeah.
Totally different.
You know what other movie takes place on
you made an
Halloween?
impact.
Yeah, you know what other movie takes place on Halloween?
Gosh.
It's the Manson Brothers Midnight Zombie Massacre.
Here's how we pay the bills, kids.
On Blu-ray and DVD on Amazon.com or through our website, MansonBrothers.com. You can also get this awesome T-shirt that's got a funny saying on the back. We have 2 different ones. You can get this Ducky hat. You can get one of our NASCARs. It's in the NASCAR Hall of Fame. It really is. You can look that up. And we'll sign everything for you.
Like it or not.
You don't even have to like it. We'll sign it. We don't care.
It is time to take it home. That's another week talking about the one and only Halloween. Like I said, guys, please hit subscribe. Come back. If it's your first time watching, please come back and see us again. Send those emails, man. We love them. Keep them coming.
Until next week, see you later, shitty pants.
Take care, guys.